Today we're going to look at rounding. Rounding is a combination of knowing both place value and a few basic rounding rules. Here's a quick refresher on place value. The first thing you always need to look for is the decimal point. Alright, when you go to the left of the decimal point, it starts with the ones place and then goes to the tens, hundreds, and thousands. It increases by multiplying by 10. And then going right of the decimal point, you're actually getting smaller in the decimal. And here's a little trick that I've been sharing with my students that's been quite helpful. When you go one number to the right of the decimal, that's called the tenths. The way I remember is there's 1 0 in 1/10. 2 spots away from the decimal point is the hundredth, and I remember that because there's 2 zeros. And 3 spots away from the decimal point is 1,000th, which is 3 zeros. Now to the actual rounding rules. So the key is this picture. It's a mountain. Okay? It starts at 0, it works our way up in the red, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then at the top we get to 5, and then it goes 6, 7, 8, 9. And you're thinking, what in the world does this mean? Well, here's our little saying to remember. Find the number and look right next door. 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Another way to describe that would simply be saying, if it's 0 to 4, it stays the same. If it's 5 or more, so 5 through 9, it goes up. You bump up the number by 1. Alright, I have 4 example problems that we're going to go ahead and work through. Now the number that I wrote in red or pink is what we are rounding to. So we are rounding to the hundredth. Now the TH tells me that it's a decimal, and that is a decimal point, by the way. That is not a comma. So that is our decimal. So now I know, if you think back to my little trick, there are 2 zeros in 100, so I find my decimal, go 2 over, and this is my hundredth. Okay, so the first step is I locate the place value that I'm rounding to. So boom, I got it. Now, what do? You look right next door. You look to the number to the right. Sometimes I've gone as far to even draw that little eyeball. Visual you'll never forget. There's a little eye with eyelashes. Okay, so we look at that 9, which is right to the right of the hundredths. The 9, remember, 5 or higher, or 5 or more, raise the score. Since 9 is higher than 5, then that means the 8, which is in the hundredth place, gets bumped up 1, and now our answer is 4.39. Or that's the non-mathematical way, or 4 and 39 hundredths. Now notice the 4 and the 3 do not change. Everything to the left of that place value stays the same. Everything to the right disappears once we round. Okay, looking at the tens place. Now since there is no TH, we are looking at the 7. That is the place value that we're rounding to. The one that we need to look at would be the 8. So if I draw just a little eye, don't even need eyelashes this time. So the 8, remember 5 or more raise the score. So the 8, since it's bigger than 5, it bumps up this 7 to, it's now 5,680. Notice everything to the left of the tens place stayed the same. The 5 and the 6 stays the same. Everything to the right of the 7 becomes a 0 once we round. Now this third one here, this one always gets tricky. Round to the nearest whole number. Whole number is another way to say the ones place. Okay? So that is a whole number, because right at the decimal we call that decimal numbers. So now we look back at the 7. 5 or more, raise the score. Since a 7 is bigger than a 5, we bump that 2 up to a 3. So remember, everything to the left of the 2 stays the same. So it's 5,943. Everything to the right of the 2 becomes a 0. So you could just leave it like that, or if you'd like, you could put 0.0. Either way would be fine. Alright, and one more example here. We have the 10th. And the 10th The TH means we're looking at the decimal side. Since there's 1 0, we know that we are going one place to the right. So we are looking at this 9 in the tens place. We look right to the right. This 8. Remember, 5 or more raise the score. Since an 8 is larger than a 5, we bump it up. Oh, now look at this. So when you bump a 9 up, it actually becomes a 10. So wait a second. That means, so a 10, you can't have a 10 in the tens place. That would be two numbers trying to take up the same spot. It's not going to work. So you almost have to think of it as adding. So we can't have a 10 here, so we're going to keep the 0 and we're going to carry the 1 over. So now we have a little addition problem. 149 plus 1 is going to be 150.0. Because that tenths place, when you bump a 9 up, it goes to a 10, which actually sends it back to a 0, and you carry the 1 over. So when you round up 149 and 98 hundredths to the nearest tenth, you end up changing the ones place as well. Now, after looking at these examples, there were none. Everything was 5 or more, so we raised the score. Let me come up with a few examples where we won't bump up that number. All right, we have 4 and 613 thousandths. We are rounding it to the hundredths place. We have a TH, so I know we are going and we are looking at the decimal side. Since there are 2 zeros, we know that we are looking at the number 2 to the right of the decimal point, which is a 1. We look to the right to determine what we do with that 1. Again, I draw in my little eyeball. A 3. The 3 in this case tells the 1, 0 to 4, or 4 or less, take a rest, or 0 to 4, hit the floor, I've heard. Or you just know that 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 stays the same. So everything, again, to the left of that 1 remains the same, and then the 1 just stays a 1. The 3 and everything to the right of it will disappear. Let's look at 52 and 47 hundredths. We're looking at the tenths place. The TH reminds us that it's the decimal. And we know that since there's 1 0, it's one digit to the right of the decimal point. Now here, we look to the right to determine what we're doing. Oh, it's a 7. 5 or more raise the score. So this time we bump it up. So that 4 gets raised up to a 5. The 52 stays the same, write our decimal in. Now 4 is now a 5, and everything to the right of the 4 disappears. We no longer need to write it. Coming down, I put another whole number question here. We have 497 and 19 hundredths. We need to round to the nearest whole number. The whole number, remember, that's another name for the ones place. So we look to the place value just to the right, which is a 1. A 1, remember 4 or less, take a rest. 0 to 4, hit the floor, stays the same. Whatever you need to think of to remember that works for me. We have 497. And everything to the right of it disappears, so you can leave it at 497. Or if you'd like, you can put 0.0 or in 0 tenths. And our last one is the thousandths. Thousandths, TH, we know that's the decimal side. 1, 2, 3 zeros. So we're looking at a 4. We're rounding that 4 place value, so we look to the right, and it's a 4. 4 or less, take a rest. Again, 0 to 4, hit the floor. The 4 tells our hundredths place. The 4 and the hundredths just to go ahead and stay the same. So we write our answer, and we get 114 thousandths. Everything to the left of the thousandths place stays the same. Everything to the right disappears. I hope this helps.